2A. 2A, 2A.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and we have come to one of the important event of this Illuminati 14, the guest lecture. And today we have three guest speakers, and unfortunately one of the guest speakers could not come to the event, hence there will be two guest lectures. The first is by Dr. V.M. Katoj, Director, ICMR. He will be speaking on promoting undergraduate research in India. May I have the privilege of introducing Dr. Vishwamohan Katoj. He is the Director General of ICMR. He is a graduate from Shimla Medical College and is a postgraduate from All India Institute of Medical Science. He received his further training at VA Medical Center, Long Beach, USA, and National Institute of Medical Research, London, UK. And presently he is Director General of Indian Medical Research, and he is also Secretary of Department of Health Research. He was Director at Jalma, Agra from 2001 to 2008. He is a recipient of number of awards, and some of the important awards he has received: Young Scientist Award in 1985, Sher-e-Kashmir Sheikh Abdullah Memorial Oration Award in 1989. He has also received Ranbaxy Science Foundation Award in 2004, UC Chaturvedi Lifetime Achievement Award 2009, Excellence in Technology Award in 2011, and he has also received prestigious PC Roy Award in 2012. He has taken number of initiatives after he became Director at ICMR, and some of those are: he has introduced formation of multi-research units and model rural health research units in Indian medical colleges, and he has also introduced virology research laboratory in various medical colleges. Now I call upon Dr. V.M. Katoj for his guest lecture.
Vice Admiral Sushil Kumar, Commandant of AFMC, Major General Nair, Dean AFMC, Chairpersons, faculty, and the dear students. It's a privilege to be in this institution, which is country's one of the top institutions. I've been here repeatedly several times since 1994. I have seen the sustained progressive growth in terms of the academic standards. But this venture to inculcate the same spirit among the students from other medical colleges is very unique, and it is sowing the seeds for our future actually. It's such a large number of students coming from medical colleges, which will have different ethos, will have different work cultures, different styles. But all the students who have assembled here, they have a common dream. Common dream to be doing something different. About 3 years back, or 4 years back, for the first time I was invited to a medical student conference in Mangalore. My flight got stuck in Mumbai, so when I landed in Mangalore, then it was only 2 hours were left to catch the return flight. So virtually I had a half an hour with the students. But the kind of enthusiasm the kind of the abstracts, the standard of abstracts, it was so unique, that showed the spirit in the young medical college students is still alive. Now, what you expect me to talk, it is not some very stereotype of subject talk, because after 2008 when I moved to Delhi, I do no longer look at my slides because that's a past. What in the last 5 years I've been able to do that connects me to the masses, it connects me to the people, connects me to what really needs to be done in the countryside. Now India, it is not that, I'll dwell on two or three areas which are, first the research as a subject. Head of a medical research body, naturally people expect me to talk on research. First I will say the research is not separate actually. Research, normally we have a stereotype vision, there is some good laboratory, people sitting with a different kind of setups, they'll be experimenting, they'll be coming up with some new discovery. So that scientist image, in the mind of the people is very different. The same scientist may be producing missiles, tomorrow you will be listening to our beloved former president. Somebody may be coming out with a new method of, it could be an engineering method, it could be a chemistry method, physics method, or it could be a medical technology. But that's only a very small part actually. That's not the medical research is all about. Medical research as a technique part has a very minimal value to me as far as I am concerned as a scientist actually. Medical doctors, since time immemorial, you take the example where you look at the Western literature, you look at our own Indian literature, you look at our own icons from Shushruta, Charaka to the present times, or you take anything, any specialty which has grown anywhere, any type of medicine. It is a physician, who is a researcher. It is a medical doctor who is a researcher. He or she thinks while practicing. So thinking process is analytical. And it is all the time there, from morning till evening. So research science is a part of his or her personality. That affects the patient care. That has the influence on the teaching. If he is a teacher, he or she is a teacher. So in fact, this is the immunization actually. This makes that person different from the others. Now in the current scenario, when you look at the medical scenario in the country or elsewhere, what excites us? Basically technology actually. We are shown the hospitals to just show how many gadgets are there, who uses what gadget. Then as a surgeon, which type of the laparoscopy, which type of the new scope you are using. So basically it is a skill actually and the technology. But this is not the science totally, it is a part of it. It is only enabling mechanism actually. The science is your analytical mind. That doesn't require any of these gadgets. That requires just the method of looking at it. That's the method, analytical mind, which analyzes. It could be analysis of one patient, it could be analysis of a group of patients, it could be analysis of the population. So that's the science. So that's part of your persona actually, that's part of your life. So when you grow actually as a thinkers and you get the opportunity to contribute, you could be sitting in nursing home, private nursing home. Because today a very high quality science is coming from the private establishments. Small setups, not big hospitals, who are doing a good method of record keeping, analysis, publishing, writing. You may be in a medical college, you may be in a ICMR laboratory, you may be in another institution. So then, or you may be just an individual actually doing your own business. Anywhere you can be a researcher. So research has to be part of your personality. It doesn't have to be anything separate actually. So that mindset should change totally. To be a researcher, to be a scientist, I need lab, I need this, I need this, I need this. There are no prerequisites. Only you are required, nothing else. So that means the only requirement is your thinking mind. And if you start that way, you start analyzing. What are the questions? What really need to contribute actually? And in that scenario, I think, you'll have to look back. It is not you are starting today. The history of science, history of the medical science is a thousands of year old. Many of the things done at that time are true even today. So the historical legacy of the clinical and the epidemiology, public health science, that stands. That is universal truth. Whether it is a Ayurveda, Siddha, allopathy, whichever medical system it could be, that is a fact. So you build on that fact actually. All the people who are participating here, I presume they belong to the allopathy stream only. But it could be any other science. Those sciences are no way weaker than us. Only the documentation has gone wrong in between. Recording is not there, so people claim. So others have a serious, not a non-serious view over them. But obviously, everywhere the things are there, because that's how the thousands of years people survived, practicing those systems. So even today, when you grow as individuals, you may get clues, or you may have to have partnership with the other systems of medicine. Many of them have a strength in that particular area. But what you have to go by? You have to go by evidence actually. You don't have to be a believer, but you don't have to have a contempt also. So science is humility, science is a fact. Science is not arrogance. Nothing is superior than the other actually. In that context, looking aside this after the temperament business, where we stand today, as a nation, what role you think of yourself, how the things are changing. After, independence, in the pre-independence era you take it, because the organization which is a part of my new department, the new department has 10 limbs actually, the Department of Health Research. ICMR is the oldest, which everybody has heard. ICMR is 103-year-old, created by the same British Act of Parliament as the MRC came. That started with 85,000 pounds, it started with 55,000 pounds. So that was the initial asset of the organization. Initially, all years from 1911 to 1947, it was the very, very beautiful history, mostly led by the British officers, British Army officers, 90% of them, and they did a fantastic job actually. Their target was nutrition, their target was kalaja, their target was malaria, their target was cholera, and they did an admirable job. And the typhoid, salmonella story also emerged from here. That's main contributions came from the veterinary side there. So that history of that side, I think it was focused on few things. After independence, when we got the independence, our life parameters, all of us know what they were. It was anything 27, 28 years average lifespan. Now it is 65, 70 actually. And even the public health system, the background was laid by a last health commissioner of British India actually. I think that architecture of our PSCs, CSCs, everything is all the legacy of the British era. And I think not a bad legacy, they did a fantastic job actually. Now, but at that time, we were just fighting epidemics. People used to be wiped out, so institutions didn't come that way. Now the entire histories of the present histories of mostly of the independent India. Most of the institutions have come during that time. But those time of 50s and 60s, when there was a challenge to think, somehow in 70s that challenge started dwindling actually. We started getting polarized to few institutions. This is one of the institutions which continues to do very well because of the army regimentation, the quality of people it had. But the civilian side, hardly a dozen institutions shown. Others started losing the shine. Many old medical colleges which were 200-year-old, 150-year-old, they lost their shine because of the political system, the social systems in those states. And eventually the thinking professor was no different than the non-thinking professor. And I think that's how the things have gone wrong. So a big generation of the so-called professors of the present time they don't have the attributes of a professor. The attribute of a professor means he should be a good doctor, he should be a good teacher, he should be a good thinking mind, researcher at the same time. So in medical colleges, when people come actually, you don't find those role models. So those role models perished for a while. Few elite institutions did have them, but others didn't have. But now I think this, about 4 or 5 years or last decade has seen the resurgence actually. It is a resurgent India. It is a resurgent India in terms of the people actually. Because I tell you, whichever laboratory institution you may be, buildings don't count actually. Buildings just, you are inspired for a while, it's a great building, great laboratory, great place. Ultimately, it depends on your mind actually, the intellectual mind. So the young people who want the revival, they want the same place of glory, they want the same novelty in thinking, but then they do what actually? So precisely you need to understand the ecosystem where you exist today. Today's ecosystem for the medical people is nearly 400 odd medical colleges. It has 170 in the government system. 7, 10 are in the nascent stage, but they are approved ones. So at least 163 are working medical colleges in the government system. And among them, at least there's number of AIMS, the institution like AFMC, PGI Chandigarh, and a number of others, Sanjay Gandhi, CMC, and very few are there in the NGO sector actually. Even if you take today the top 30 institutions, 24, 25 belong to government sector. So most of the science is happening in the government side. But it doesn't mean the private cannot do it actually. They can do it. And the people should do that. So even if you tomorrow you're in a private faculty and there is a value for science, you have an opportunity to do it. But I wanted you to connect to that word, how that word is today. Today you look at the health research, from where the money will come. You need the money to do it. Your own managements will give you some money, maybe they may or may not give. But many of them, they give something because they also want some glamour to your place. But then you have to generate money. And generating money even from the Indian institutions, the government agencies do that. There are at least 8 science agencies which are funding heavily health research. It is not the ICMR or Department of Health Research alone. There are 8 agencies. Department of Biotechnology gives money. Department of the Science and Technology gives money. DRDO gives money even in the civilian side. Then the CSIR gives money limited way. ICR also funds the zoonosis and the nutrition. Department of Space does. Department of the DIT does. Maternal child, the women and child health, they also gave the grants. So in a way, they're at the moment 9 or 10 agencies which give money actually. Ayush gives the money. So question is, whichever theme you choose tomorrow, when you become a young faculty somewhere, then what you need to do? You have to be competing for grants. And those grants are available. Is basically, the question is, you're doing it. But what agenda you will choose for yourself? That's a very important part actually. Agenda laying, it could be some of the attractive areas. You think of stem cell. But stem cell is a one technology which will provide you some answers. And it's a very important technology which will provide you the way that you can have many leads in that. At the moment, 82 institutions in this country are active in stem cell research actually. 82, it's not a small number actually. And 20 of them are in the government sector. Rest all are in the private. Nanomedicine, again the great opportunity. If you think today in the country, except for the blood cells, hematopoietic cells, for which Major General Nair also has contributed immensely. More than that, the people looking for the corneal limbal cell, which has the second most approved method. People are looking at the bone, which is again approved procedures. People are looking at the cardiac cells, neurological cells. A number of other things are there actually, which will come up. Liver. I think if you look at 4 or 5 years from now, there will be a large number of medical colleges will have these setups because there's immense opportunities there. Regulatory framework has been laid down. Approvals are not that difficult now because there was nothing earlier to approve. Now things are there, the structures are there, committees are there, regulatory systems are there. But it is not just actually, should not think that it is purely a intervention research. You need to understand about the clinical profiles, the biology. The clinical profile of the diseases are eternally changing in this country. If you think you have understood about the infections, forget about it. Though the infections, even today, they're killing 48% people, 47% people, but they're very much there actually. Most dangerous infections like Crimean Congo, hemorrhagic fever, they are there everywhere in the country actually. Other infections are there as rampant. So, research on the infectious diseases itself is a very, I think, promising opportunity. And what you need to do there is not an empirical science. What is the right way to diagnose? What is the right way to have a differential diagnosis for them? Which technologies you need? Huge opportunity exists for creating methods.
Opportunity exists for even trying vaccines, being a part of the teams to develop vaccines. I'll give you example here because the question of vaccine is coming. If you would have read the recent example of a rotavirus vaccine from this country. How it came? It came by the observations of a clinician, Professor M.K. Bhan, a pediatrics professor, former secretary of Department of Biotechnology. He was observing in his ward that he detected the rotavirus in the stools, but none of the children were having diarrhea actually. So he just thought it could be a mutant which is not pathogenic, and yes, his observation was correct actually. Same, he started trying for the grants from ICMR, the other science agencies, international players. Again, finally the company took it up, and 25 years later, there's an Indian vaccine now. So observations of a doctor led to this entire discovery. The same with the Alexander Fleming's discovery of the penicillin. It's just observations actually. It didn't require any money to create it. It was not a big biotechnology or a genetic engineering laboratory. It was not like that. Just an observation actually. Professor P.N. Tandon, a very hardcore neurosurgeon, but at the age of the 85, he continues to lead most of the biotechnology related applications. So I think question is not that if you join a clinical stream, you cannot do the other side. You can continue to be an innovator on the other side also. But okay, you be a part of the team. There may be better people knowing a better job about the genetic engineering, gene cloning and other things, but which you also can do it actually. To me, when I transformed actually from a medical person to a researcher, it was just one kick, First I got selected to talent search scheme of ICMR, 75. So that was an opening into a medical research as a career. Then I published my first paper as a house surgeon from Safdarjung Hospital. That paper drew a huge number of reprint requests. I used to put a hole into that and tag that all. That thrill of being recognized, being identified, propelled me into a different journey altogether. So I think many of you at this stage, when you come today to present your papers, what you want to show? That means you have a thinking capacity. You have an analytical capacity. When you write a project, when you submit to as a first STS program for ICMR, what you want to compete for? That means you are a thinking mind. So research for you is part of your personality actually. So you will grow, those opportunities will grow. So I think, but that has to be sustained later. So the number of use examples you see across. The example that you will see in this is the faculty of this premier institution, AFMC. Everybody's biodata you look at, you will have some example to follow here. So I think these 2-3 days seminar here will give you opportunity to think that way. But now coming to the other opportunity which I was talking about. Tomorrow you want to do something on the diseases which are emerging. For example, non-communicable diseases. Everybody is talking about them. But to find solutions is not easy actually. Why it is not easy? Because we are superficial. And that's not science. We know you talk something, well, this lifestyle change, this diet is making a difference. If that knowledge was so tailor-made to the community, these diseases would not have come to that extent actually. See, the earlier time I was talking about, many people died of the epidemics, pandemics. But those who survived, they survived up to 100 years without a complication. Their diet was simple. So what dietary transitions happened? So ultimately, that science, which as a physician you can do, as a public health person, if you join the community medicine, you do, or you when continue to be a pediatrician, you do that. I think that science has to be around that actually. What were those micro changes which have brought us to this disastrous stage actually? Why 10%, 12% people have diabetes actually? Why so many people have it? Do you need all of them require pills? No, we should not require pills actually. To me, keep the person on drugs for 20 years, 30 years is nothing actually. This is just killing him. Except for hypertension and diabetes you have to manage. But other side, preventive side, just to keep person on a drug, to keep his lipid lower, this lower, that lower is absolutely ridiculous actually. Those are doable by other regime changes, other your dietary changes, which are doable. So a lot of science is required to be done on that front actually. Same way, now if you get your organs are damaged, it's not due to trauma, due to stroke, due to damage earlier. Of course, the stem cell applications will have a great role actually. Now cancer therapy, cancer has a great opportunity in this country. Because cancer has come up to a point, is almost perhaps much more common than the infectious disease also. Everybody known to us is suffering from cancer, some type of cancer. It has happened due to environmental changes, natural environment, pesticides, what else? So lot of science you can do from the point of view of finding the reasons. At the moment, we all talk generalities. This is possible, this is possible, this is possible, this is possible. It's meaningless, I'm telling you. But that story doesn't lead you to a clue actually. You can't win a war by just having a descriptive story. You always plan something. Here is the enemy, so only you attack the enemy actually. So obviously in all these, where we are making a list of enemies, we are not going into the depth actually. Now the bisexual is a gynecologist. The polycystic ovarian syndrome has come in a very big way. But how it came in a big way? What are those transitional changes are happening there? How are we really ignoring them? We are not ignoring them. Endometriosis again continues to be as rampant. The diagnosis of genital tuberculosis continue to be as bad as it was 40, 50 years back when we were residents. So the story is, everywhere the gaps are there. And those gaps cannot be filled unless you are a very analytical observer. So the first leadership has to be with the doctor, treating doctor, as a teacher, as a researcher. Only then you build the team around. Microbiologists, pathologists, they have their own role of looking at the evolution of the disease, the pathogens, the diagnostics. But the solution has to become as a team actually. A team has to be led by a doctor. It has to be led by a clinician. It has to be led by a public health person if it has to be that way. For that purpose, in today's India, I'm telling you, is very different from the one perspective. Interdisciplinarity has come. I have started explaining that something which we can't do, we have to take help of somebody else. You ought to have your own diagnostics, you ought to have your own vaccines, you ought to have your own devices. Because country cannot be all the time remaining a follower of somebody. Why you should be a follower of somebody? Whenever in my 5 years in this office, I've given a call for something, nation has risen. So if you want a kid to be prepared on something, you get these so many competing grants for that, and people do it actually. We think people can do in 2 years, they do in 1 year actually. So that capability of innovating, today is at the peak actually. It can be another peak, it can be another peak. So I think whether it is a technology generation, technology adaptation, or more so the evolution of clinical science, which is that question. I gave you the example of these non-chronic diseases which are becoming rampant, metabolic disorders which are becoming rampant, and all of them, if the investigative science plays its part, doctors play their part, public health people, they play their part, I think majority of them are preventable. We all understand that. But we are not going into the depth. We just make a vague list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that vague list leads you nowhere actually. So I think it is the time when you will grow as individuals. Don't be superficial. Don't go by this textbook descriptions. Look at what micro level contributing factors could be playing the part. Technology is there for everything. Whether you to play with the cells, you can do that. You can make the nanoparticles of anything. You can understand their toxicology. You can use them as vehicles for targeting cancer. Now, you can prepare your DNA chips so easily. Entire genetic structure is known to us. You can compare those structures. You can identify which genes are making a difference. You can prepare a chip, which will be guiding for the diagnosis of a cancer, classification of a cancer, therapy for the cancer. So I think the opportunity for non-communicable diseases is also immense actually. And for that, you'll say, from who will give me the money? You write a grant to, if you want to do the basic part, you write a grant to Department of Science Technology. You want to write to Department of Science, Department of Biotechnology. ICMR funds for everything. The new department which came with me as a first secretary, that addresses basically connection with the states. During this period itself, we have come out with 50 units in the medical colleges, which address the problems related to non-communicable diseases. We have come out with a unit, which is a unit in all government medical colleges for the infectious diseases, virology. So any virus can be identified by any medical college. So India the horizon is expanding. You may be at any smallest place also. You will have all these capabilities created by federal government. Then you can write grants on a question which bothers you, on a question which is of topical interest of that time. I give you example. For example, chronic kidney disease is come as a nation. It is a very big problem, but there are pockets of such a problem in Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Northeast, where villages after villages are dying with the chronic kidney disease. Why? Is from environment, obviously, something with the water, something with a common thing which they are eating, and you should be there to find it out. But if you really suffer, then how to delay the process? So chronic kidney disease person also, if he can survive without a transplant for 15-20 years, even his dialysis requirement is also slowed down. Same with the chronic liver diseases, other degenerative diseases, you can slow down the progression. It could be with a modern allopathic drug, or it could be with an Ayurvedic drug also, which can lead to that. If your memory can be preserved, if your agility can be restored, can be maintained, senile degenerative changes can be delayed. So I think it is the time, to look at those issues not at a macro level, but at a level where they can be investigated at a molecular level. You can look at every gene, every function, and as a doctor, you can classify them. As a doctor, you can follow them. You can see the intervention also, what happens. So I think immense opportunities. And finally, the environmental health actually. Environmental health is something which again, Major Nair is also very active, the number of faculties they are very active. But this is now re-emerging as a opportunity. Controlling the environment